I know you. I know you better than anyone. This isn't you.
No.
What are you doing? Living at your grandparents' place? Being in the DAR? No Yale? Why did you drop out of Yale?
It's complicated.
It's not complicated.
You don't know.
This isn't you. You going out with this jerk? With the Porsche? We made fun of guys like this.
You caught him on a bad night.
This isn't about him. Okay, screw him. Hi besties, welcome. Today we are heading back to Stars Hollow. I'm so excited to say that this week's video is once again sponsored by Book of the Month. It was such a joy working with them last month, and I'm so stoked that they asked me to do a video again. So let me give you the rundown. Book of the Month is a super popular and really quickly growing online book service for readers like you and like me. They work really hard to promote new and emerging authors and help readers find their new favorite books. They have a team that vets hundreds of new books every single month and gives their readers a curated selection of the best new and early release titles. That way you can spend more time actually reading and less time researching what book you should read next. One thing I love about Book of the Month is that it's risk-free, which means that if there's any month where none of the books really appeal to you, you can go ahead and skip it and you won't be charged. No problem, no questions asked. If you sign up with the code JOLLY today, you can get your first hardback book for only $5. It's a holiday miracle for you and for me. And even though they have an incredible skip policy, I have a feeling that you won't want to use it this month because all of the books look like absolute bangers. Let me tell you what they are. For all my romance babes out there, we have The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. In this book, two twins decide to switch lives when they both feel like they're in a bit of a rut. The thriller this month is A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. This follows our main character, Chloe, whose father was convicted of killing 6 young girls when she was just a child. But now, when women start to go missing again, everything comes flooding back. Next, we have A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. Our main character, Travis Wren, is known for being able to find missing people by using only one object. But he stumbles upon a weird, reclusive community and disappears. I'm also super stoked to read Olga Dies Dreaming by Xochitl Gonzalez. This book follows a brother and sister in New York in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. And then my personal pick for the month would have to be Somebody's Daughter, a memoir by Ashley C. Ford. It deals with growing up in America as a Black child with an incarcerated father. The add-on book this month for new members is one of my favorite books to have come out this year, The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. If any of these books strike your fancy, you can get whichever one you want for only $5 using the code JOLLY if you sign up at my link down below. Now, I've been very vocal about the fact that I am Team Jess when it comes to who I think Rory should be with. However, there is something about Jess that I haven't shared with the internet, and that is that that man changed/ruined my entire life. Because waking up every day and carrying on, knowing that it is very unlikely that anyone will ever annotate a collection of Allen Ginsberg poems for me and say the line,
"You know, Ernest only has lovely things to say about you,"
makes me want to rip my hair out of my scalp. Just changed my life in that growing up, I never understood the bad boy trope. I was always rooting for the kind nerd. I always thought, what do all these people see in a leather jacket and a wife beater and a bit of an attitude? And then I watched Gilmore Girls. I said, oh, I get it now. Jess is our favorite, misunderstood, bad boy with an attitude because he's a literature nerd just like Rory. It was only fair that I do one where I read Jess's favorite books as well. So that's what we're doing this week. Okay, first up, I'm reading Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut.
Oh, what is that? Something for school? Oh, well, shouldn't you be reading something for school? Why?
I went to see your principal today.
Huh.
He says you're flunking out.
I've actually already started this. I read the first chapter the other day, and it's one of my favorite opening chapters of a book I've ever read. So if the book stays on the trajectory that the first chapter has laid out, this is promising. I don't know too much about it. I do know that it's probably the most well-known anti-war book in the American literature canon. And I know that Vonnegut is known for his kind of like dark humor, but also kind of a stream of consciousness. This book follows a soldier who was present at the Dresden firebombing and how that has kind of affected his life since it happened. I'm very excited about this one. Next, I had to choose an Ernest Hemingway book.
Okay, tomorrow I will try again, and you will...
Give the painful Ernest Hemingway another chance. Yes, I promise.
So I chose the shortest one that wasn't The Old Man and the Sea. I just didn't want to read that. This one is The Sun Also Rises. So this book also touches on some anti-war themes, I believe, and like the disillusionment of the generation that lived through and after World War I. I actually believe it follows a couple. They go lots of places, they go throughout Spain and stuff, and it's supposed to be a really great example of kind of Hemingway's signature writing style. So I feel like it'll be a good place to start because I also haven't read a Hemingway before. Very stoked to read this, actually. I'm gonna be reading Franny and Zoe by J.D. Salinger.
Did you get lost? No, I was looking at Rory's books.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to see if she had Franny and Zoe. She does.
Okay.
I was gonna get it for her if she didn't.
That's very nice of you.
Yeah.
It's about somebody named Franny and somebody named Zoe. And the other book is On the Road by Jack Kerouac.
Tragic waste of paper.
Can't believe you just said that.
Well, it's true. The Beats writing was completely self-indulgent. I have one word for Jack Kerouac. Edit.
It was not self-indulgent. The Beats believed in shocking people, stirring things up.
They believed in drugs, booze, and petty crime.
I tried to read this in high school and I hated it, but I feel like it's so quintessential Beat generation. It's so quintessential like disillusionment with America and so quintessentially Jess that I have to for this video. So I'm gonna try again and maybe I'll like it this time. Gonna give it my all. What else will I be doing this week? I'm gonna listen to some punk music to really get in Jess's head. I might get attacked by a swan if I encounter a swan.
It's a vicious, vicious bird.
Maybe I'll call my uncle, be a dick to him. Maybe I'll loiter somewhere. Excited to have you join me. Another reason I love Jess is because he reads some short ass books. Rory cannot say the same. Peace out, nerds. Okay, I am close to done with Slaughterhouse 5. I'm truly obsessed with it. I kind of want to get just like this whole thing tattooed. It's just like such a masterclass in storytelling. It's a beautiful day. It's like the day where every time the wind blows, leaves just like fall to the ground and it's gorgeous. Hey babes, so I am about to head to the national park in my town to take Athena on a walk. If you didn't know, I have started doing album reviews on my Instagram again. So I go on a walk, I listen to a whole album and I give you my thoughts and my favorite tracks and you can listen along with me and we can talk about them and whatnot. Today I'm listening to Be the Cowboy by Mitski. If you want to join that party, you can follow me on Instagram. It'll be in the description. But because we're still in the midst of our Jess week, on the way to and from the park, I'm gonna listen to some punk playlists. I'm formulating a Jess Mariano playlist for you. I'm gonna be working on that this week, and by the time this video goes live, it will be public on Spotify. I will link it in the description. It is called Why Did You Drop Out of Yale? It's got David Bowie, it's got Metallica, it's got The Clash, and then lots of other people I've never heard of. I'm gonna start making more playlists and sharing them with you because I love books and I talk about them a lot, but I also really love music. As for the books, I started On the Road because I didn't want to leave it for last because I was dreading it. And I knew if I left it for last, I like wouldn't get to it. So I went ahead and started it and I'm actually really liking it. And nobody is more shocked than I am. There's so much about the narrative style that I really, really am drawn to. So far I'm really liking it. I'm just vibing with Jack Kerouac. Update. I am, according to Goodreads, exactly halfway through it, I'm liking it, but I am liking it less than I was last time I checked in. There's no really overarching objective or plot line. There's not something super solid to grasp onto to carry you through. But I also think that that's incredibly intentional because that's kind of exactly the way the characters are experiencing their lives. Whatever reason, it just got really cold in my house. I don't want to get up and change the thermostat because I'm cold. I'm reading Franny and Zoe. I must rely on the beauty of literature to keep me warm, like they did in the old days. Update, I'm bedridden. I hurt my back really badly, and now sitting in an upright position is painful, or laying in a horizontal position, also pretty painful. So I'm just reading because there is nothing else to do. I took a muscle relaxer earlier, had one of the deepest naps of my life, woke up drooling, felt like I was sleeping in class again. For whatever reason, even if you don't drool when you sleep at home, fall asleep once on your desk in middle school and then you're the girl who drools. I didn't say the world was fair. I'm almost done with On the Road. I switched to the audiobook because every page I read, I was like, I don't know what I just read. Turns out the same is happening in the audiobook because I'm just having a hard time staying engaged with that one. The prose is good, but it's not consistently good enough to make up for the lack of plot and objective. I'm reading The Sun Also Rises right now. I'm like 30 pages into it, liking it so far. I think I like Hemingway's writing style. We'll see. I finished The Sun Also Rises. I think I liked it, but you can never be too sure. It occurred to me while making this video that Jess is the epitome of that meme that's like, you're wearing a Metallica shirt, name 3 songs. Like, Jess is a name 3 songs man. I hate to admit it, but it's something we all just have to accept. All right, let's talk about these books because I have thoughts. The main one being that Jess Mariano has pretty immaculate taste. Overall, I enjoyed these books exponentially more than I enjoyed the books I read for Rory's video. I am grateful to Jess for choosing short books because we know that man has the attention span of a fly, except for when it comes to Rory. I'm fine with it when it comes to books because the longest book in this bunch was 307 pages. First up, I read Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, and it's one of my favorite books I've ever read. We started strong out the gate. This book was just unreal to me. Like, the things that Kurt Vonnegut did in this narrative, I've never really seen another author do successfully. So I was just very impressed as a reader that he could get across so many of these ideas in such a non-linear and disjointed fashion, and that only kind of added to the messages he was trying to convey to the reader. This touches a lot on the trauma of war, on the soldiers who fight in them. It touches on PTSD when returning home and how that can dramatically affect your life and relationships. Just kind of about how the brutality of war doesn't spare anyone. We get to, for the second time since starting this channel, add a book to my favorite shelf. Cut to clip, Sally. I underlined and annotated the crap out of this book. I could have written an absolute banger of an essay about this if I had read it in high school. Like, Vonnegut's writing style is not like anything else I've ever read. I also totally understand why Jess loves this book, because there's so much disillusionment and anger within the pages, but also this underlying kind of defiant hope that I think really characterizes Jess. Next, I started On the Road by Jack Kerouac. Even though it's relatively short, it did drag quite a bit for me in the middle. I loved the prose. I loved the way Kerouac wrote. He really encapsulated the Beat generation and the ideas that these Beat poets and young men, especially in America, had in the 40s and the 50s. And then for me, it started to drag around the 150 page mark. I just couldn't stay engaged. So much of it is stuck in the period that it was written in. There were moments that I just really couldn't get on board with. I definitely see why Jess likes this book. This kind of encapsulates a lot of Jess's not as good qualities. Kind of the idea of sucking the marrow out of life and like really living life to its fullest, but kind of leaving people in the dust behind you. That's present in Gilmore Girls with Jess. That's present in this book with Jack Kerouac and his friends. Also, Dean says yas all the time, like Y-A-S-S. And I was cracking up because I was like, this is the yassification of Jack Kerouac. And my friend Flannery made this. And after I saw it, I asked her to yassify Allen Ginsberg, and it's even better. If nothing else, this book gave me those memes from Flannery. And while I was reading On the Road, I picked up Franny and Zoe by J.D. Salinger. I read this in an afternoon. I really liked it. It read to me like a short story. The narrative style and the function of the characters felt much more like a short story that was trying to get across a point than it felt like a novel, because it all happens within about 24 hours. And it just felt very much like you, the reader, were in this pressure cooker with the characters, which I loved. They're both grappling with some familial grief and trauma, but at the same time, Franny is sort of trying to figure out her own spirituality and religion, and Zoe talks her through some of his own experience with religion. I'm not a very religious person, but I very quickly jumped on board because I really loved Zoe's kind of speeches to Franny, and the way that he talks to her is very, very reminiscent of real life siblings, which I really appreciated. They're not best friends and they're willing to be brutally honest with each other, but they obviously care very deeply for each other. Franny and Zoe was published about 10 years after The Catcher in the Rye, and from what I remember of Catcher in the Rye, which is limited, this felt a little bit like Zoe was a more mature version of J.D. Salinger talking to Franny, who was more like J.D. Salinger when he wrote Catcher in the Rye, if that makes sense. Changed and learned a lot in the 10 years between when he wrote these two. It's very simple. There's not a ton of huge drama. It's just basically family members talking to each other. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm really glad I read it. There's also elements of it that feel like Rory talking to Jess and trying to get beneath his facade and learn more about him deep down. And lastly, perhaps Jess's favorite author, Ernest Hemingway. I read The Sun Also Rises. This was really good, I think. I think I really liked it. I'm still kind of trying to formulate thoughts. I read it in, I think, about 3 hours. I really didn't want to put it down. The story, the pacing was just so brilliant, and I think that came from Hemingway's prose and the way that he wrote. It is very different than a lot of classics in that it's very sparse, it's to the point. He doesn't wax poetic about things, he states them how they are, but there is also poetry in that, which I think is really cool. Pretty open-ended, and it kind of suggests that the same way things have been going on throughout this book will continue to go on after this book is over. But I really liked that because it just felt like an honest slice out of somebody's life. And just like with the other ones, I can totally see why this was Jess's favorite author. I mean, Jess was the king of 3-word sentences, and you kind of get that same sparseness. I saw so much in Jess and Rory's relationship that was reminiscent of the main relationship in this book, in that there's this kind of unrealized love and this kind of yearning and longing, but ultimately a decision not to be together. It's first person. You see him kind of watching Brett and longing for her. It felt a lot like when I watched Jess yearn for Rory the first time. This makes a lot of sense to me. Overall, I thought this video could go one of two ways. I would either be more in love with Jess than I was at the beginning, or I would want to run screaming, and ultimately the first is true. Like this video if you're team Jess. Tell me your favorite Jess moment in the comments. I want to know. And subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, in case you haven't heard it today, I love you.